In January 2001, the Hart-Rudman Commission on Homeland Security predicted that terrorists would attack the United States on American soil. After 9/11, that prediction seemed, well, omniscient, uncanny. Former Senator Gary Hart has spent decades looking at defense, both at home and overseas. He joins us from Denver this morning. Welcome back to In Business, Senator. We're trying to get a handle now on what the post-Osama world looks like. It's certainly not a post-Al-Qaeda world, but given the amount of strain and debate in Washington about spending, how much can we afford to cut defense, any kind of intelligence, any kind of foreign aid spend right now?
Well, we're trying to finance 21st century security with a 20th century economy and a 20th century military, and both have to change. Conflict and warfare in the 21st century, as we have learned through bitter experience in both Afghanistan and Iraq, are going to look much, much different from the nation-state wars of the 20th century. I agree with conservatives who say you shouldn't pick an arbitrary number for the Defense Department and then fit the military inside that number. What we should do is bring the Defense Department into the 21st century. That will require reshaping our forces and reassessing the conflicts of the future. We can make our country more secure and save American lives, and at the end of the day, it will cost less money.
Well, let's be specific here. So the Department of Homeland Security was created after 9/11. Do we now, say, trim back on what they're actually allocated in budget?
Well, I was addressing the traditional Defense Department created in 1947, 64 years ago. That department has to change itself. The Department of Homeland Security, which our commission recommended, I think first in the country, turned out to be much, much different from what we had in mind. It's, I think, much too large, much too expensive, relying too much on outside contractors. It has created kind of a mini Pentagon inside the country, and that's not what should have happened. But right now is probably not the time to make major reforms there.
But how would you like to see, maybe if not major reform, then perhaps reallocation, if not an outright cutback in spending? I mean, in the financial community, there's concern about the integrity of financial systems. We saw a hacking of the NASDAQ. You have concerns about accessing of bank information, and it's not clear where some of those vulnerabilities are and attacks are coming from right now.
We're entering an age in which as I've said, the conflicts of the future are going to look much different. The threat of cyber attacks is a real one. You can't solve that with money, but we are going to have to create, much more rapidly, I think, a capability of dealing with that threat. Now, the people that deal with it are not going to be wearing uniforms and flak jackets and getting in aircraft carriers or tanks or anything like that. It's a different kind of conflict. And besides, the fewer than 50 people that invaded the Osama compound did not use the instruments of warfare in the 20th century. One cannot stress enough that security in the 21st century is going to look much, much different, and it has to be analyzed much differently.
Right. No, and it'll be interesting to see where that comes from. In terms of the existing departments, but talk to me about another sort of traditional form here that's rationalized under security spend, and that's aid. In particular, aid to Pakistan right now. They're an ally. They have been ostensibly in that war on terror. Does the United States now cut back on that aid package?
There is no way in the world the taxpayers of the United States at the present time can prop up more than a dozen, 2 or 3 dozen foreign economies, including the few that have nuclear weapons. We just don't have the resources. So some financial assistance, carefully targeted, and with results. I think what the American taxpayers are going to demand is if we turn over billions of dollars to these countries, they behave much, much different where our interests are concerned than they have in the past. They can't have it both ways. On the other hand, Pakistan has its own security interests, and we can't force them to toe the line where we're concerned.
Well, Senator, thank you very much for sharing your insights.
Pleasure.
Appreciate your time.